Hello, and welcome back to part 2 of the double-header crossover special of both the Tyler Moore and the Tyler Moore East, all about parks. Here we are building a ton of parks to prepare for a great expansion of the city, mostly in Malalaton, which is going to start developing in earnest very soon. And right now we're just taking the cross-link streetcar through Isabella out to the train to take us to Pistoria, where we're going to head on back over to the Tyler Moore East and get going on building a lot of parks over there. Now, this is spurred on by a few things, the population influx being one. Another thing is that it's a long, hard winter, and it's really spring fever that I'm feeling, and I really just am itching to get to planting some flowers and trees and shrubs to have everything green and leafy and pretty again. Winter is my favorite time of year, but it does wear me down, just like the rest of us. So come along with me. We will take a short train ride out, and we will see what kinds of parks we can put in Pistoria, in Delta Junction, in soon-to-be Tharpton, and the small town of Cedar Bend, over in the merry Tyler Moore East. Thank you so much again for joining me. This is just so much fun. I really do appreciate you checking these out. Keep coming back for more. There will be plenty in the future. And here in Pistoria, we stop off right beside the main train station. This is going to be Station Park. Pistoria doesn't really have a great amount of parks yet, though it is quickly rising up to be quite a big, compact city. So it's about time that the Sims of Pistoria have a nice green space to retire to on a hot summer day or on a cold winter blizzard when they just want to have a nice outdoor space. There's some sheltered spots on the side of the station there where they can be sheltered from the harsh winter winds coming off the lake. I'm going to be using pedestrian roads as opposed to paths here because we're going to be placing a few different types of assets, different buildings throughout the park that are going to need road access, and I don't want them to be flashing angry at me like the playground in Cedar Bend did at first. We're going to need to have space enough for emergency vehicles to get through here and for garbage trucks to come and collect all the trash from these receptacles that I'm placing around. Good picnic space is definitely going to be needed in this park. Being right beside a major train station, you really can't go wrong with a nice space to sit down and relax and eat a meal, because so many travelers from so many different places are going to find themselves stuck in Pistoria for a little bit between trains while they wait for their transfer. They're going to need a nice place to go, just like Wonderland Park in Malalaton is supposed to be for the big bus depot there, big bus station. And like Martha's Point, we're going to give the kids a really super whiz-bang playground. I'm using every playground asset that I have in here to create a mega jungle gym. Because again, a lot of people will be using this park, and a lot of kids in the region just don't have a whole lot of places to go or things to do yet, because these are the growing pains of a young city. Maybe there isn't so much exciting business around for everybody just yet, but that's what this park is going to change. I'm going to make sure there are lots of trees in here, but I will ensure a few sunny spaces left around so people can feel the warm sun on their skin as they walk through the park on a cold winter day. And of course, I have to manage the traffic around here so we don't end up with traffic jams of private cars clogging up the paths, because everybody feels like they need to drive over to the playground even though it's just, 20 meters away from the main door of the train station. Now heading on over to Delta Junction, where there likewise isn't much park space. I have to fix up some of the paths here. I didn't let the garbage trucks come through. But now we're going to develop the main park of Delta Junction. Finally, this big city is going to have something to do. It's mostly just been a bedroom community up to this point. Delta Park is going to be mainly used as a big meeting space for big group events. Like I'm envisioning it much like a park. When I was a kid, we used to have our scout meetups once a year, where all the different levels of scout troops would meet together from all across the region and participate in a bunch of fun games and activities and whatnot. You need a big, open, empty space for such gatherings with hundreds and hundreds of people having, relay races and potato sack races and piñatas and silly games and fun activities. All that needs to happen somewhere in an affordable open space. So this is going to be that for Delta Junction and for much of the Tyler Moore East. You can sort of consider it a common sort of thing. In England, in the UK, they often call these parks a common because back in the day they were used as a common grazing ground for the public. So anybody who had sheep or goats or cows could herd them down to the common and let them graze without having to pay a tithe or a tax or a fee. Now, today, most people living in these cities don't have goats or sheep or cows, so they don't use it for the same reason, but they are now used as big open space green parks. And that is what we can consider Delta Park to be, a very similar type of park, of big wide open space with a few great fun activities for people to do. Another playground here because, yes, there are kids in Delta Junction too. Just because it's a workers' neighborhood doesn't mean we don't have children living here. And why not put in some music, a nice cafe, a good bandstand over there. Eventually we're going to be putting a concert fan zone in as well. Definitely need some seating and benches along the pathway, especially outside the basketball courts if you're waiting for another team to finish up their pickup game. Great place to sit down. If you're the bench warmer, then you need a bench to sit on. And lots, of course, of trash receptacles and recycling receptacles all around. Benches for the parents at the playground and a PTT toilet, so everybody has a place to go when they need to go. And also benches around the bandstand so people can sit and listen to whatever quartet or trio or quintet or rock band or, person with an acoustic guitar is doing up there on the bandstand. And let's not forget more picnic areas. These are important places to allow people to sit and really enjoy the park. We really, a lot of our special moments are tied to food in human life. And if a park is going to be a part of our special moments, then it needs to accommodate our activities that involve food. We're not going to be putting kitchens in our park, so the picnic stand or the picnic shelter is probably the best way to go about it. Just gonna pepper some lovely trees all across the park, make it look much more grown in and natural and inviting. It's really kind of looking a bit like a dull, dead, gray winter park right now, but you can imagine in the springtime how many blossoms will be sprouting out here, and I'm already just getting rid of the dead winter grass and brightening it up a bit, why not make the grass greener if you can? So here's the fan zone park. I'm going to be fixing it with a road later on, with a path road, so it's not yelling warning signs at me that it doesn't have a connection point. But it's just a great little place. We don't need a big concert space in Delta Junction, but when there is a big concert, it would be great to have it, a live feed here in Delta Junction Park so that people can just pop on down the street and take a gander at the concert going on elsewhere at the big concert site, wherever it might be. Now, moving on down to Tharpton, which has not yet been built out, but we do have all the transit planned, and that will be a big area of development coming up shortly. But we do need a nice park, and right along the shoreline here is really the best location I could scout out. And we don't have any beaches in the Tyler Moore or the Tyler Moore East yet until now. And it being winter, it's not going to be greatly developed just yet, but you can bet in the summertime it is going to be the happening spot. It's just going to be beautiful. So we'll rename it. Tharpton Beach seems like a pretty sensible name. And once we put the sand down, you're going to see just how beautiful it is. Those colors. It looks like a tropical paradise. You might as well be in the Cayman Islands or Barbados or Thailand. It's just gorgeous. Does not look like winter down here anymore. But since it is, we won't be able to be putting the towels and chairs and umbrellas out on the beach, but we will give them a PTT toilet as well as a volleyball court, and we'll plant down a little beach bar as well so that the volleyball players have a place to grab a drink in between games while they're waiting for their string to go back out on the court. They can sit down with a nice, this time of year, probably something warm and comforting, but in summertime, a nice cold slushie or a popsicle would be a good thing. You might think volleyball court in the winter time doesn't work either. Why bother putting that down right now? But really, you can play beach volleyball in any kind of weather. You just need to dress appropriately for it. I once signed up for a volleyball league years ago, and it began the first week of April when we still had snow flurries at times. And the thing was, everybody's out there on the court in toques and mitts playing volleyball for the first game of the season, but the rules are quite strict in that, no shoes on the sand court. So it made for a very lively game because our feet were freezing cold in this ice cold mud. Nobody wanted to stand still for very long, so everybody jumping and hopping around made for a very exciting game of volleyball. It was only a couple of weeks before it warmed up enough for our feet to be comfortable in the sand again. So why not include a volleyball court right now? We'll just take away the parking spaces and bob those out so we don't end up with a bunch of people parking on the sand. We'll include a better parking station for beachgoers once the season begins in earnest. But a nice little beach bar here to help people warm up on a cold day or cool off on a hot one. And that's pretty much going to do it for Tharpton Beach right now, but you can see a lot of space for a lot of potential entertainment. Now on over to Cedar Bend, the tiny town with nothing to do but sit on the train platform, or maybe head on over to the pharmacy. It doesn't have a soda fountain there or anything. Really not much to do in this town, so they need a little something to keep at least the kids entertained in the region, so they're not, going out to the farms and tipping cows on a Friday night. So here's going to be a lovely little, good for any time of year, Cedar Bend Park. Going to put some pathways through it. Again, a great playground. And once we fill it up, we're also going to put some new homes along the side of the park just to fill it in, make it feel a bit more like a complete neighborhood. Good old PTT toilet that we all love. Good for everybody. And then on to the decoration. All the benches, all the bike racks, all the garbage pails, and of course, a wonderful playground for all the kids, because let's face it, they need some fun and entertainment in this town. Now here again, yelling at me, they need road access. They need road access. I currently, while filming this, I did not have path roads installed, so I'm just going to have to temporarily move them off to the edge of the park and build another street out here, which, it's a pretty logical place for another street to go through for future development. But here we're going to have, just temporarily until I get the paths sorted out, a nice, great playground for the kids at the back of the park here. And filling all of this out, we're just about finished here in the Tyler Moore East for our parks. And once I filled out the houses on the side and diddled around with the parking lot out here, I'm going to leave you for a short little city tour so we can see what we've done so far before we jump back on over to the Tyler Moore proper and do some work in Malalaton. Lots of work coming up over there, using these lovely little Chrysler homes because I just can't get enough of them. They're so adorable. And there we have it. There we go, on to Malalaton. That's not like Hollywood Squares here. It's not a game show. It is Malalaton Squares. There are 3 very important public squares in Malalaton. Each one is going to be very unique and very special and really define the neighborhood around them. As the city builds out, these are going to be a major source of the identities of each community around. So we're going to start out here in Buteau Square, and the first thing we're going to place is very, very important. It is the Monument to the Victims of Femicide, something that happens all too often. And so we really need to highlight this in a community like Malalaton. We really want women to be the focus of empowerment here. It is really important in all of the Tyler Moore that any kind of group that is discriminated against in what we consider the real world is really highlighted and as an accepted part of our community and just as equal as everyone else. Now, I'm going to put a nice accessible ramp on the other side here, but that's going to involve some PO, which I'm still figuring out little by little. I'm going to need to use the rotation tool. And the rotation tool can be a bit confusing with me sometimes because, it's like a bit like diffusing a bomb. I think it's the red one. It's the red one, isn't it? No, it's the blue one. You gotta do the blue one. It's the blue one. No, it's the green one, right? I think it's the green one. I'm gonna go for the green one. You've got to listen to Ray. He's always right. It was the blue one after all. Getting a nice ramp in here. I'm going to make sure the incline is accessible so that people can wheel themselves right up to the monument. I did look for a nice honorary plaque to put on, but I couldn't find one in my menus, so I'm going to have to go through the Steam Workshop and pick up some sort of nice little plaque or sign that I can use to commemorate this monument. Making sure that it's not going to be dangerous for anybody to roll off this platform up here, so I'm designing a nice custom fence to put around it. Something not too opulent, but something that definitely says we care about this space and we tried to make it as lovely as possible. It's going to be both a somber memorial of respect and honor, but also a place of celebration of all kinds of people, but mainly women. There are going to be a lot of different uses in this public square, and you're going to see shortly all the different things we add to it once I can figure out how to tilt this railing at just the right angle to get it to look right. Once I've got that going, I get sailing on with this and finish things up. Also realizing I don't want the whole thing to be just a big mud pit. The steps in front are intended to be planter boxes. Eventually those will get planted out a little bit today, but mostly in spring. But I need something for this monument so that people aren't wheeling themselves up the ramp and getting mired in the muck on a wet spring day. So I'm going to plop a chunk of asphalt here. I don't like pavement any more than I like cars. So I prefer to keep it to a minimum, but it's necessary here. So I'm just going to get that fitted in properly. And then we're going to need something green because it looks pretty desolate and sad. So I'm thinking olive trees, symbol of peace. Why not? So let's get some nice, pretty lush olive trees planted in there. Really going to stick out like a sore thumb in wintertime right now, but with spring well on the way, it won't be long before they fit in just fine. Putting a couple of pine scrub brushes in here as well, just to fill it out for the winter months. But in the springtime, this is mostly going to be filled in with flowers and ferns and other things that wouldn't normally be around in winter. Thinking about safety, we're going to put a light in the center of the arch so that people can see what's going on within the arch, and hopefully nothing terrible happens in there. But we also need to highlight the beauty of this monument so that when people walk by on the street, they really take notice of it. So some lovely yellow spotlights to give it a warm glow. Really just the icing on the cake. So beautiful. But that's just the monument in the middle of the park. We still have a lot to do in here. This is going to be packed with activity. Remember, this is going to be the hub of the neighborhood that's going to develop around it. So we really need to give the people something to talk about, something to do. It's going to be sort of a collection point where people meet and gather and just hang out on a boring Sunday afternoon, sort of a la Greenwich Square or George Washington Square Park in Greenwich Village. In the 1960s, they used to have all kinds of folk musician circles around the fountain and whatnot. It's going to be a similar type of atmosphere and gathering place. some lovely bike racks, plenty of lighting to keep things safe, but not so much that it's going to bother the birds and the wildlife of the area and not going to keep the neighbors awake. But one last one, a memorial lantern here on the monument, and a reflecting pool, because I think this is the type of square where people are going to be doing quite a bit of reflecting on themselves, on the past, on others. And now comes the really fun part of the square. We're making a women's marketplace. All vendors are female owned and operated, all kinds of special goods in here. We're going to put in a fresh produce stand so that you can both pick it up like a farmer's market and bring sacks of fresh produce home, or if you're just hanging out in Malalaton in the square for the day and you need a snack, you can grab a banana for some, inexpensive price. Lots of fresh, healthy, locally grown, organic food, of course. It's going to be as good as it possibly can be. And these, I don't know, are they strawberries? Are they tomatoes? Are they apples? Maybe they're red pears? I don't know. What do you want them to be? That's what they are. And we're going to put some nice fresh flowers in here too, but the kinds planted in pots and planters. So they're still living. You won't be bringing home dead flowers from the women's market. Not here, not today. Going to put in a few hanging baskets and things like that. It's the type of thing you want to buy to bring over to your mother-in-law's house on her birthday or something. Lots of hanging planters as well. I found a better produce stand to use. It's not that intrusive green. And then, fill in the rest with some watermelons and some sundries, some racks, maybe spices or something, little packaged teas perhaps. And these I'm not quite sure. Parsnips maybe? And cucumbers? Or are they ears of corn? I'm really not sure, but they do belong on the produce stand. So here they go. And I'm also going to hang some chilies and garlic above it later on. But first, my favorite booth, and I think the most important one, the used book sale booth. This is a fantastic place where you can find treasure troves of glorious information that you might not be able to find in a regular bookstore because it's been out of print for 20 years. Quite often I have favorite books that I lend to friends and coworkers and other people, and I say it's the best book ever, and they lose it or they destroy it because they just don't care about it. And I end up losing my favorite volume, and then I have to go hunting it down on all kinds of different websites to find because I can't find a copy anymore because it's out of print. And that's terrifying to me, to lose some of my favorite volumes of literature. So this is the kind of place where bookworms like me are going to go to hunt and find their favorite volumes that they can no longer find. And of course, we're going to need a lovely canopy to keep those books dry on a rainy day. I'm going to do a few little tweaks here and there, add a couple more lights to keep it safe. I'm going to see what I can bob in and out of these pre-made booths, and pepper some benches all around. So there's plenty of places for people to sit. Drinking fountain as well. Couple of potted evergreens and lots of bicycles in the bike racks. Inspiration of this came from Ghent, Belgium, where years and years and years ago, when I was fortunate enough to go, I was greeted outside of the train station by just endless hordes of bicycles heaped up on top of each other, none of them locked up. I was under the impression it was just sort of a communal culture. You grab a bike and you go, and when you're done, you put it down and someone else picks it up and goes, and you grab another bike. It was kind of how it seemed, though I didn't ask any of the locals because I wasn't going to be using the bicycles myself. But inspiration for that being used in Buteau Square. And here, my favorite part, we're going to have a women's self-defense class that meets every morning here for all ages and abilities, so you can learn some basic self-defense tactics. It is really just a wonderful, welcoming, healthy environment for all people, but especially for the females of our society. Not to mention, this is also including trans women as well. Now we're going to move on over to another spot of great empowerment, Rosa Parks Square. It is located right across the street from the Rosa Parks Institute for Dignity. Very important institution in Malalaton. And now we're going to build out the square. We're going to start with the obvious. Not that the people of the moor need reminding of this, but it is necessary so that we always remember and future generations can learn when they're very young that all Black Lives Matter. Rosa Parks would want everybody to know that, I'm sure. We're going to pick out a really nice paving for the area just to make everything pop. I want each square to have a very distinct character to it. So each one is going to be paved with a different material so that it can be very distinct and unique. When you walk into Rosa Parks Square, you're going to know you are not in Bhutto Square and you are not in Yusufzai Square. This could only be Rosa Parks Square. So each one is going to be very unique, nothing repetitive for these three very important plazas. And now we need a monument to equity here in the middle of Rosa Parks Square. And I actually had a difficult time finding a monument I hadn't already used in the Tyler Moor because there are a lot of statues and monuments in this city. So we're going to place that right in the center, and we're going to surround it with some really beautiful decorative lanterns, some bike racks, of course benches, of course a drinking fountain, of course lots of places to sit, and there's going to be a community bulletin board as well. Very important for people to post when the next meetup is going to be for your group. For those who are not internet savvy. Yes, there are plenty of people in this world who are not yet internet savvy, and we include them as well. Some picnic tables so you can eat your lunch as you admire the monument. And here are those lanterns I was talking about. I've never used these lanterns yet in any build, but they are really gorgeous, sort of antique looking. And to place them, I'm going to have to switch it into nighttime so I have an accurate view of just how bright I'm making the circle. I don't want it to go overboard. There is a saying in agile project management that you want things to be barely sufficient. Now that might not sound good at first, but it means that you have just what you need to make it work right and well, and no more, because too much gravy on top can be a waste. Now I like gravy, but too much of a good thing is not good. And of course, our very equitable PTT toilet. Not too close to the picnic table, please. I don't want people's lunch to be spoiled by any wafting air coming out of that facility. And moving on down to Yusufzai Square, this is really the main square of Malalaton. It is right on one of the main streetcar lines. It is very prominent as you come into Malalaton from across the Isabella River. And so we really need to put something monumental in the middle, something devoted to women, something devoted to education. And I think over on the side here, what would be a good idea if we placed a civic-run student dormitory for all of the post-secondary students in Malalaton who need an affordable place to live, but there aren't any dorms here in Malalaton at all. We don't have a serious university here, but for those who do attend post-secondary institutions in Malalaton, they're going to need an affordable place to live, and this building is reserved just for them. So here's the Malalaton monument, but that is going to change out because I realized later that I had already used this very same monument as the angel for the workers in Methuselah Rock, and I don't want to be doubling up on my major monuments in the city. That just repetition that doesn't seem realistic or necessary. So we'll switch that out. But some seating, of course. The garbage and recycling pails plentiful for access. Bike racks down here along the main boulevard. And now it's time to pave it out as well. Once we've paved it and we've switched out the monument, I'm going to leave you for some more city tour so we can look over what we did here in Malalaton. And we're going to look at everything we did in the dazzling night lights before we close out this very long episode. Thank you for, maybe not enduring it with me. I hope it was enjoyable, as it was for me. And I'm double checking, yes, the Angel of the Workers in Methuselah Rock needs to be switched out here in Yusufzai Square. So we're using something of Herculean effect. And here we go for the tour. And there you have it, our many, many parks of this great expansion of the Parks Department and the Board of Parks in the Mary Tyler Moore and the Tyler Moore East. Thank you again so very much for joining me. I really do appreciate your time and your company. Feel free to leave likes, comments. Feedback is always welcome and appreciated. So thank you so much. I hope you continue to join me here in both Tyler Moores for a long time to come. And I hope you take care and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.